Hello, fellow keyboard players and producers. My name is Matt Vanacoro, and we are checking out Waves Factory's Demonic Virtuoso, a really great harpsichord instrument. That's going to allow you to get some really cool sounds out of this instrument. So we've got a really lovingly sampled harpsichord here, but sampled in a really interesting way that's going to allow us to sculpt the sound a little bit and get some more out of it. So let's take a look at the options. First, I've got the mixer window here. So I click on this button to bring up the mixer tab. And the mixer is going to give me an option between a close mic, a mid mic, and a far mic setup. Now I can turn any of these off. So if I want to just hear the far mics, I can disable those two. Now, of course, I could achieve that as well by simply soloing any of these mics. So if I don't want to disable them permanently, I'm just like, let me just check out that mid mic and see where it's at. Wow, a little more detail than that far one. And of course, I'm sure that close-up one is going to be very intimate. For sure. But the combination of all three really gives a great sound. And the ability to mix them is also something that's great. So if I want to get a little bit more of the far mics in, I can just bring down the close mic a little bit, bring up the far one. So really, the ability to carve out your sound is fun. Now, I can also adjust the width of all three mics individually, and that can go from full stereo to straight up mono. Then when you go to the left, you're actually inverting those stereo channels. So if you want to play with the phasing a little bit or change the perspective, you can do that with all three. Now, once you've got a good balance and you want to work with it a little bit, you can open up the effects page. And the effects page, this tab is going to allow you to put effects on the individual mic sets, but also on the master, and they're independent of each other. So if I click on the far mic set and I decide, you know what, I'm going to add a little chorus only to the far mics, that actually winds up adding it to probably the least sounding mic, even though it's turned up a little bit higher. If I mute that, it's a nice chorus effect that's not quite so obvious. So you get a nice in-tune close mic and a little bit of a detuned far mic. And you can also add effects to the master that are independent. So now the master bus here, I'll add a little bit of reverb. Let's pull back the wet. I don't want it to sound like it's in the middle of Giant Stadium. So as you can see, the far mic and the master are both independent of each other, which is great. Now, the final page is this settings tab right here. So if I click on the settings tab, I've got a couple of different choices. Number one, you'll see the round robin first. And the round robin is what allows you to get a more human sound out of a sampled instrument. You've got essentially 4 sets of samples here. So this note C has been sampled 4 times. And every time you hit it, you can hear all 4 if you've got all 4 enabled through round robin. So right now, with only 1 enabled, I'm hearing the same sample. The exact same sample every time. And as I enable more repetitions, you'll hear it rotate through. And the brightness level changes a little bit with each attack. So all of the things, the randomness of the world as it was sampled is at play there to give you a slightly different sound every time you hit that same note. So you've got that choice of how many different samples you want to be able to rotate through. Now with that is the dynamic range, and appropriately with a harpsichord, the dynamic range is initially set to 0 because a harpsichord, doesn't change the volume if you hit it stronger or softer because it's this percussive pluck that happens. So if you want to get a little artificial, you can go ahead and add in some dynamic range and play a little softer and a little harder to get more volume. And of course, at full dynamic range, we've got some really soft hits and some really loud hits. Now again, for a harpsichord, I'm going to keep that amount usually all the way off, but it's just nice to know the option is there. Same with this velocity curve. Now, generally with the velocity curve, it's not going to affect a harpsichord too much because you want it to be one steady dynamic range. But if you start adjusting that dynamic range and you want to be able to temper your keyboard, your MIDI controller, to get some higher velocities a little sooner so you're not hitting it so hard, the option is there. Right here, this third column, I've got the ability to adjust the release volume. So if I ratchet that down to nothing, you'll hear when I let go, not much going on. But if I ratchet that up again, right when I let go, there's a sound. There's a sound when I release the key. Listen to it again. If I turn that all the way up, it's very obvious. It's very, very loud. But at its normal level, there is a sound when you release a harpsichord key. In fact, if I hold it long enough and let that sound decay, you can hear it right now when I let go. Ready? The sound of me letting go of the harpsichord keys. So you have control over how much of that you want in there. Of course, at a realistic level, you're going to hear it a bit, but this is a computer sample-based instrument. We don't have to stay realistic if we don't want to. And finally, the sample start offset. So where that sample starts playing back from, you can control it in milliseconds if you don't like some of the buzziness there and you want to get rid of it. So you'll see the value in the bottom left-hand corner change in milliseconds as I change that up. So Demonic Virtuoso, a really highly configurable harpsichord recorded with 3 different mic sets for you to craft your sound as you please.